Ever look at your cucumber plants and just think, come on, you can do better than this? Well, if you're not getting the massive harvest you dreamed of, you're going to want to stick around. Today, we are diving into a really simple science-backed trick that can totally change your cucumber game. Let's get right into it.
So, does this look painfully familiar? You've got this beautiful, lush green cucumber vine. It's covered in these pretty little yellow flowers, but then you start looking for the actual cucumbers and there's almost nothing there. It's honestly one of the most frustrating things for a gardener, right? It feels like the plant is all show and no go. But what if I told you the answer isn't about adding more stuff, but taking something away?
Okay, so to solve this puzzle, we first need to get into a little bit of cucumber biology. Turns out not all those little yellow flowers are the same. And the secret to unlocking a huge harvest is really just understanding the difference between them. So let's break this down. Take a look here. On the left, that's your male flower. See how it's just sitting on a plain, thin little stem? His one and only job is to make pollen. But now look to the right. That's the female flower. And here is the dead giveaway. Right at the base, there's a tiny little baby cucumber. That's actually the ovary, and that's the part that's going to swell up into the delicious cucumber we want, but only if it gets pollinated. So why does the plant even do this? Well, most of the cucumber varieties you're probably growing are what's called monolaecious. Now that's just a fancy science term that means one plant makes both boy flowers and girl flowers. And here's the kicker. The plant is programmed to make the male flowers first, and a lot more of them. It's basically trying to get a good supply of pollen ready before it spends a bunch of energy on the female flowers. Okay, so we've got this flower imbalance, right? The plant is pouring all this energy into making pollen producers, not the fruit producers we actually want. So what's the solution? It's something called strategic pruning. Yep, by making just a few simple snips, we can essentially talk to the plant in its own language and tell it where to put its energy. You can think of it like this. Your cucumber vine has a limited energy budget. And if you just leave it alone, it's going to happily spend that budget on growing longer and longer vines and popping out tons of male flowers. Pruning is how we step in and say, whoa, hold on there. Stop spending all your energy on just getting bigger and start redirecting that power into making more female flowers and, actual cucumbers. Now, I know this might sound like an old gardener's tale, but it's not just folklore. This exact technique has been put to the test in formal scientific studies. So let's actually look at the data because it shows just how powerful this can be. So back in 2022, a team of researchers in Nepal set up a controlled experiment. They wanted to measure the real-world effects of a very specific pruning method on cucumber plants. And what they found, which they published in a peer-reviewed journal, gives us some amazing insight into what's going on with these plants. The technique they tested is called 3G cutting, which just stands for third generation cutting. The whole idea is that the main vine, that's the first generation, or 1G, it produces mostly male flowers. So if you prune it, you force it to grow side shoots, which are the second generation. Then you prune those, and you get this explosion of third generation branches. And these are biologically wired to produce a much, much higher number of female fruit-bearing flowers. So what did the study actually find? Well, on the plants they just let grow wild, the ratio of male to female flowers was 4.38 to 1. Just think about that. For every one potential cucumber, the plant was supporting more than 4 flowers that could never, ever produce fruit. That is a ton of wasted energy. But now, get this. On the plants where they used the 3G pruning technique, that ratio dropped all the way down to 1.69 to 1. That is incredible. They basically tripled the proportion of fruit-bearing female flowers just by making a few smart cuts. But, okay, the big question. Did this actually lead to more cucumbers? Oh yeah, the unpruned plants produced about 79 metric tons per hectare. The pruned plants? They yielded over 95. That's a 20% increase in the total harvest. For a home gardener, that means way more salads, tons more pickles, and just a much happier summer. The science is pretty convincing, right? So now you're probably wondering, okay, how do I do this in my own garden? Well, let me tell you, it is surprisingly easy. Here's the whole process in 3 simple steps. First, let your main vine, that's the 1G, grow out until it has about 6 sets of leaves. Then, just snip off the growing tip. This tells the plant to send out side branches. That's your second generation. Let those side branches grow until they have about 6 sets of leaves, and then snip their tips too. And that's it. From those cuts, new third-generation branches will shoot out, and trust me, these are your money makers. They are going to be loaded with female flowers. Okay, now hold on. This next part is absolutely critical. This is a piece of advice from gardener Adriana Sim, and you have to listen to it. Don't go crazy and just prune every single side branch you see. Remember, you still need some of those male flowers around to provide the pollen. Without pollination, even a plant full of female flowers won't give you a single cucumber. So balance is everything.
All right, one last really important point. This technique is fantastic, but it's not meant for every single type of cucumber out there. Let's just make sure you're applying this trick to the right kind of plant. So this 3G pruning method, it's designed for those classic heirloom, those monoecious cucumbers we talked about earlier. But a lot of modern hybrid varieties, especially if you see words like seedless or greenhouse on the label, are what's called gynoecious. They've actually been bred to produce only female flowers, so you don't need to do this kind of pruning. What's the easiest way to know? Just check your seed packet. But honestly, for most of us growing cucumbers in our backyard, our plants are probably monoecious, and this trick will work wonders. You know, it's funny. So often we think that to get more, we have to add more fertilizer, more water, more everything. But as we just saw with cucumbers, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do to encourage growth is to strategically take something away. It's a pretty cool lesson from the garden, huh? What if the secret to abundance isn't about addition at all, but about subtraction? Definitely something to chew on.